ahead and
Gotcha.
thank you.
Well,
Thank you. Uh, Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, rather. Uh, Monday afternoon, it's a little after 6, and we'll start off what we normally do. See if we have any questions, any concerns, or thoughts about what we discussed yesterday or over the weekend. Uh, Questions or comments?
I wasn't able to get on, so if somewhere along the line you can kind of give me a little bit of what you talked about yesterday.
I'm not. Yeah. Can somebody do a summation for us, maybe? I'm sure anybody can better than I can. We mainly talked about well, not mainly. We had a couple of questions, Kathy, but we talked about fear. Fear came up, I think, on Saturday and yesterday, and we addressed that. Uh, Looking at our DNA and looking at who we are, and letting that be the driving force, the spiritual side of us, rather than fear, because uh, that has been something that has plagued us as well. Uh, the fear of violence in our communities. So that was one of the things we talked about. Can someone help me out? Anybody remember anything else we discussed?
I think that was the main thing we talked about. Then we talked about um, remembering who we are above everything else, and that those things are in the news. We need to know what's going on, but we do not govern ourselves according to what our eyes are seeing or our ears are hearing from the news media, because we know what our desires are for harmony. And no matter how dire things become, we have to remember that we were not given the spirit of fear. And then those we talked about, those are more than words that you say, because I hear people always talk about they don't have a spirit of fear. They're afraid to die. They're afraid to do a lot of things. They're afraid to walk away from a church. And they know they're not getting anything. You know they've been manipulated. And you don't never know if you have courage until you are faced with a situation that you have fear. Yet that's fear is simply a transformation into courage. Being courageous doesn't mean that you do stupid things. Being courageous just means that you endeavor to speak the truth regardless of who you're speaking with or the environment that you're in. I think, I don't know whether I covered most of it or not, but that's part of it. Okay?
Thank you, Pat. We also may have talked, and that may have been Saturday, I don't remember. One day we talked about uh, paying attention and being careful that the pandemic is not over, and we are to just pay attention and protect ourselves and our families from that. We mentioned that too, I think. Uh, I think that about covers it, Kathy.
Okay. And so, the can anybody can tell me about the monkeypox? I saw on the news this morning where they showed this person's body, how it got in their hands and on their body. Where did the monkeypox start from the beginning?
Anyone? Kathy, hopefully someone's looking it up right now because I saw it briefly too.
Ron,
Around. Yes, sir.
it is a coronavirus.
It is a coronavirus. Okay.
It's almost like the way it looks on your body. You know, the coronavirus that we were and still are dealing with was invisible. But this monkeypox is not. And where it had its origin in terms of countries, more than likely they're going to say it started in South Africa or China. So, does that help you, Casimir?
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks. I know. I remember you saying something about even after coronavirus, you know, the people still have symptoms from it. Because I found out last week that a friend of mine, her daughter, had COVID and she developed a blood clot in her stomach. Now that was the first I heard of, you know, the stomach. I've heard people maybe having the brain fog and but this is my first time hearing about the blood clot in the stomach after she had it.
You can't read the list, it's so long, about what COVID can do to you. And that's why I don't see why people are playing with it. And the other part of it is this. You can walk around if you want to without a mask, and you can stop using the sanitizer if you choose to. But guess what? You just might end up with monkeypox because it's transmitted the same way. And you don't have to be as close to the person as you were with corona in order to get it. Creator is speaking loudly. You go respect my actions or you go suffer. And I do believe that that's where we are now. If you remember the plague in Egypt, what the Creator was doing with that plague is showing us how it works. And how does the Creator work? Every time that the Pharaoh or the government refused to change its actions, another plague hit. And death had to come before the Hebrews could leave. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, yes.
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 Mm-hmm.
So I do believe that that's where we are. Everything in this country, the economic system, government, religion, everything in this country is about bondage. Everything. There is nothing you can do in this country that does not put you in bondage. If you can think of something, please tell me. Okay.
I can't think of nothing.
Ron?
Pastor Jay, I have a question.
Go ahead, Evelyn.
Oh, and this is, but it isn't pertaining to what Pastor just said, but will we ever learn, or how will we know how the Creator works?
How do you work? Do you work in a righteous manner? Your life predicated on being courageous enough to do what needs to be done in order to create peace, an environment of peace? Are you able to carry other people's burdens, or are you one of those people? Why me? When we learn the depth of who we are, we don't have to know how to create a work. We just do the work. Does that make sense?
Yes, so it just comes automatically. I mean,
It
you
comes.
learn by trial and error, right?
Yes, it is. It's by trial and error. For example, I wrestle with finances because, preachers don't make no money. But anyway, I wrestle with finances. But when I learned something about finances, one thing I learned is this: if you have it, there's no point in worrying because you're not gonna get it. If you have it, there's no point in worrying rather because you got it. If you don't have it, worry is not gonna give it to you. And the second thing I learned is the best way to manage my finances was to be generous. And that sounds very crazy.
Say that again. Say you were a little low.
The best way for me to manage my finances is to be generous. That's what I learned. At least one of the lessons I learned. So, did I do that overnight? No, I didn't. I had people who in my life, and they were reminding me of who I am. And that was long before we were talking about we are Elohim. They kept reminding me that there is no way that the Creator is not going to take care of you. And I bought into that wholeheartedly. I knew that, but guess what? I needed to be reminded. But that if you get upset when somebody reminds you of who you are or something that we've taught, if you get upset about that when they say that to you, then it just takes that much longer for you to be who you say you are. You can't mistreat people and think that you're going to be able to function as the Creator. You can't live in an accusatory life, a selfish life, a mean life, and think that you're going to be able to function as Elohim. Not going to happen. Why? Because those are not the attributes of Elohim. I would rather someone hurt my feelings than to hurt anyone around me, or rather than me hurting their feelings. I don't cherish that. I used to do it, but then I did not know who I am. The things that I'm dealing with now are heavy as a mountain. But I know one thing. If my shoulders were not strong enough to carry the mountain wouldn't be on it. Do you feel that way, or do you, why me, or blaming someone else, or being selfish and saying, or are you the one who truly wants as Elohim? Does that help you?
Yes, and when you were talking about giving, it's not just financially, it's your time and whatever you have, if you could help someone. Are you talking about that as well?
I'm talking about being generous, not just with the finances, but in the beginning it was the finances, because that's what my issue was. Over the years, it became being generous with me. Being generous,
So
everything that Creator has given me, that I can make someone feel better or grow stronger.
So we have to really believe that truly the Lord is our shepherd and we have no lack.
Yes. Absolutely. We must really believe that. that we must believe that it is better to not exist than it is to be selfish. It's better to not exist than it is to walk over people. It's better to not exist than to take advantage. The other thing is this. If you're on this phone and you are exhibiting those attributes that I mentioned that we should not be doing, then the question becomes, when are you planning to embrace the teachings? The other question is, why are you here? If you have no desire to change, why are you here? Why are you on Zoom? Why are you there? Here? We are not here as orators. We are not here playing games. We are not here trying to figure out who is the most intelligent or who knows the most. No. We are not here for that. We are here to hear. And when we hear, we speak what we hear. That's why we're here. We raise the questions that we're shown that need to be raised. It's important to raise the question to get clarity, but also it's important to raise the question because the answer to that question, as well as that question, is put in the macro. But if you are not embracing the teachings, you are absolutely wasting your time. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes.
Yes, it do.
Yes.
I want to tell you something else, too, since I'm on this. Anyone who has been around me for any period of time know this about me. I will rather teach 2 sincere people than to teach 200 who might be, who don't know what they want. 200 who trying to find something that to learn so that they can show somebody else what they know. Just give me 2 sincere people. I'm good. Sincerity is the key to everything that we teach. Everything. And I'm not talking about the 13 of us. I'm talking about everyone on this Zoom. Every one of us teach. We're the facilitators? Yes, we are. Yes, we are. But we are who we are because we want, our desire is for harmony in this earth and for the ones who are on this Zoom, who we're teaching, to become the teacher. Be better than we are. Everyone with whom I interacted, who is among those 12, I want them to be better than me. Wanted that from day one. And what has taken place is, if I transition right now, it would not matter. Because you guys could carry it. That's important to me. We have to be so consistent and dedicated until if one walks away, it's okay. I've had that to happen. I've had 2 teachers to walk away from me. And every single time that one left, another showed up. It has been consistently 12. And that's not lost on me. Sincerity is there. And maybe I'm the way I am about this because I'm feeling the signs of the times. I'm feeling that when the Creator moves, it's not going to miss you if you don't have the blood on your doorpost. If you're not sincere. If you don't have the blood on your doorpost, if you're not roasting the lamb, then you will not be passed over. Those attributes that I talked about, if those are your attributes, then no blood is on your doorpost. Does that make sense? Talk to me.
Yes. Yes.
I'm serious. This is what we are.
Yes, Pastor, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad you're talking about this tonight, because either we're going to be with the family or in the family, or we're not.
And you can't pretend to be, because you will be showing up for who you are eventually. That's why I push so hard for sincerity, for deep desire for this harmony in the earth. And if those attributes are yours, you're not looking for harmony. You're part of the problem. You are part of what needs to be ripened. The problem is not to destroy. The problem is to ripen, to deliver, to transform, so that we can truly be who we were created to be, the image and likeness of Elohim. Any questions, any comments about this? No questions, no comments. Ron, at some point,
Yes, sir.
I would like to address something that Barbara said yesterday about space. Barbara, are you on? About creating space. Remember
Okay.
that?
Okay. Yes, sir.
So, go ahead with what you are.
Well, the floor is yours. You want to do it now?
Well,
I mean, I'm going in a different direction.
okay. Well, Barbara spoke about the space to create. I think that's what it was in reference to. That's why I wish you were on. However, I do know the gist of what she was saying. I remember that. When I was talking with someone yesterday in a counseling session, one of the things I said to them was, you understand more than I did as quickly as you did. In other words, it took me 20 plus years, 30 years to get to where I am in my understanding, and it took you 2 minutes. How can that be? It doesn't matter when you come into the garden. If you come in the morning, the afternoon, or the evening, you go get the same reward. Why? What they did not understand, the earlier ones, is that when you come in the morning, at the beginning, you're creating light for the one who comes afternoon. And you're creating a space for that light, or enlightenment. The one in the afternoon is also creating space. And the one in the evening steps into that space and walks away with the same reward, and that reward is understanding who you are. That is not talking about getting paid money. It means it's speaking to spirituality. Everything Jesus said was speaking to spirituality. How can I tell you about heavenly things we don't understand earthly things? How can I talk to you about heavenly things? How can I tell you that you are Elohim when you don't understand what it means to be Elohim? You still think that it's blasphemous to say that you're Elohim. I can't talk to you about these enlightened things. So I put them in a parable. And I would talk to you about earthly things with heavenly or spiritual meaning. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
You are
Yes, sir.
always creating space for understanding. It doesn't matter how long it takes. What matters is that you stay with it and do not get upset simply because someone grasped it quicker than you. They grasped it when they were supposed to, just as you did. And if you get upset about that, you have reached the end of your road until your attitude change. Does that make sense to you? I hope so.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
So that's all I wanted to say about that, unless there are questions or comments.
Good evening. This is Mary. I have a question. So I was thinking as you were talking about making space, and there are times, and I guess this is a question, can we fill that space? And I know the answer, so I don't know if I answer. But anyway, can we fill that space with negative things? Because people have a way of projecting to me, or trying to project their negative vibes on me. And I'm just saying, I'm not going to receive that. Sometimes I'll take it and it soaks in and it makes me do a self-examination. And then I shake myself and say, oh, wait a minute. That's not my issue. So I'm not going to take that on. So the question is, can you fill the space that you made and put negative stuff in that space? I think I said it. Does it make sense?
It does. I understand your question.
Okay, good.
Yes, you can. However, is it negative if someone says something to you to make you self-examine? It depends.
No, it depends on what it is, because one of the things I know that the Creator is my source. But then when people start, family in particular, start having me second guess some of the decisions that I've made, and I'm thinking, that's not an issue for me, and I feel good about the decision I made, the choices I have made, and I'm not gonna, and I just refuse to buy into what they're saying. So I said, okay, I'm not gonna buy into that. So the self-examination is always good. So I guess it's always good for people to throw things at me, for me to say, okay, check yourself, Mary. Are you on the right track? Where are your priorities? Because it's not about me getting things, it's about me being of service. And I don't know. I don't know.
First of all, if someone is trying to make you second guess yourself, that's not their problem, it's yours. How you receive it creates a problem for you, or it makes you stronger. It doesn't. They're not even thinking about you anymore, and you're up all night wondering. The negativity in that space is shown in the scriptures. When the argument came, he didn't work as long as we did. Why is he getting the same reward we got? That's the negativity that's been pushed into it. And I'm saying that in that space, that should be a place where you encourage the one who came at noon. You help that one, and both of you help the one who came at the end of the day, so that that one can get it, an understanding, long before the others got an understanding. That's the purpose of what we do, to help others to see who they are. So, yes. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Pastor. I thought you were done. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just think that it's an interesting question, And keep in mind, when we had that discussion, the creating space, we're talking about holiness. We're talking about being whole. So that's a journey. That's a journey. And if you've reached that point, I'm thinking back to Saturday when Nick talked about setting your intent and just being, then is it truly negative? It may not be what you think was going into space. For example, what you just said may be clearing the way for somebody else to see, not to have self-doubt. So the others that's coming behind you, maybe you're making it clearer for them. So I think it is an interesting question, and I think it only becomes negative if you allow it to overtake you, or you succumb to it. So other than that, no matter what it is, there's a thought there or a lesson to it that waits you. And I say, I don't know. I look at it a little differently as whether or not it's negative. I don't see it as being negative if you have truly reached the point of completeness and holiness and wholeness. Excuse me. And I hope that made sense. If you want to discuss it, ask me a question about that. But the creating space thing is you, that means that you have come to a certain place of understanding, a certain place of maturity. So even though the doubt comes, it may not even be your doubt. It may be something that you have to deal with for those who's coming behind you.
Yeah. Sorry, Pastor. No, I can see that because as you tell me these things, and again, whenever someone tells me something, well, not whenever, most of the time when I'm confronted with something that I wasn't aware, I kind of take a step back, look at examining, and go inward just to make sure, because I know I'm working towards that perfection. I'm working toward trying to do what I need to do. And then once I realize that's not me, once I realize, okay, that's not my issue, that's something that they want to put on me, I shake it off and I keep moving. So that's a way also of letting people know, okay, I said that, but she's still going. So let me just watch her or whatever. I don't know. But you're right. It is kind of like what I think somebody said Saturday about, no, that wasn't Saturday, about mastering something, because we hadn't mastered anything yet. So these things are going to come, and I like to examine myself just to make sure that I'm on the right track. And sometimes, I don't know, that's where my thought is, self-examination, going inward whenever things come up, just to check it out, checks and balance.
If you keep doing that, eventually you'll get to the place where you don't have to stop and do it. It happens automatically.
That would be great. I want to get there.
Get it immediately.
And not beat myself up. Okay, we already talked about, I'm sorry. We talked about that, Ron. I remember. So, yes, I do. I think about it because it's my desire to do what's right. And what I think is right may not be what other people think is right. So it's like, okay, well, I can't walk their journey, and I wish they would stop trying to put their journey on me, but they do. So what can you do? I don't know.
Dan, that's your problem. That's your problem.
Yes.
That's the burden you've chosen to bear. When you get to the point where you don't allow it, you don't choose to let it have an adverse effect on you, then it becomes automatic. As long as it has an adverse effect on you, it's going to continue to happen because that's an area where you need to be strengthened.
Okay. I got that.
Position
Okay.
here.
Yes, I got that. Thank you. That makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm done, Ron.
And thank you. Thank you, Mary. Anyone else? Thoughts or questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
all that we go through, and all that we receive through everyone answers and questions, it's just a spiritual journey that we're in training.
You're asking a question, Charles? Are we in training?
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
I don't think it's what we are training, because once you train, you can do it. I think it is a journey of awareness, which is different than a journey of training. But you can't teach me. You can teach me to be aware that I'm Elohim. Does that make sense? You can't train me to, but you can make me aware that I am. Hello?
Makes sense, Charles?
I'm listening.
If I could train you to be Elohim, then that means that you're not Elohim until I train you. However, if I make you aware that you're Elohim, then that's been there all the time. Those who choose not to become aware cannot be trained to be Elohim, because they've chosen to become aware of who they are. What I'm saying in essence is this: you cannot walk into a church and stand in front of that congregation and say Jesus was married to Mary of Magdala. If you were to do that, you would be ejected quickly. And you will be told that you're blaspheming and they need to pray for you. And if you're in the Charismatic Church, they need to throw some oil on you too. So you can't you can't make people aware who don't want to know. That's why we put things in the macro, to create a sense of inquisitiveness, to make them cause them to question everything. Am I making sense? Oh, am I clear?
Yeah, you clear?
Okay.
I understand.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Anyone else? Any questions or comments? Doesn't have to be on this subject if you have something else you'd like to address. I have a thought. I guess it's more of a thought than a lesson. And to show you, tell you how I got to my thought and the irony that Pastor talked about this today. He mentioned yesterday in the midst of our discussion, he talked about the farmer, if you will, just in my terms, or hiring someone to go out in his field, and he pick one in the early morning and the noonday. We talked about that yesterday a little bit, and I didn't know he was going there today, but there was a part of that, the end of that got my attention that I wanted to talk about. And that verse 16 in that chapter, Matthew 20, says, thus the last, after it talks about that, Jesus talks about in giving the wages and those who disagreed because I was out here in the early morning and this guy so pastors explained all that. The verse that got my attention when I went back to read that was verse 16 that says, thus the last should be first and the first should be last. That again caught my attention, and I think probably not just so much a coincidence that not knowing he was going there tonight that I talked about this. I saw something here that at least I think I do that I like to mention. A while back, probably about a little over a year or so ago, Barbara taught a lesson on being equally yoked, and we talked about we have always understood, at least I have always understood that or thought about it, is being with another person. I want to have, if I marry somebody or I'm be with somebody, I be around somebody, those people that I choose, I want to be equally yoked. I want them to be searching for the same sort of thing, on the same type of journey, especially if it's someone who is a potential spouse or whatever. I want them to see and do the same things and that follow similar journey that I'm on, as far as what our beliefs are and our understanding of Scripture. But she did that in a different way. She talked about it, and these are my words, okay? Because I don't remember exactly how she said it, but she talked about the part of you that is the immature side, or that part of you that is more animalistic, becoming more submissive or coming under the authority of your soul, and until you walk in that balance that it is equally yoked. And that made all the sense in the world to me. And since that time, and there was a lot more that she said, okay? But that's the one of the thoughts that I got from it. So that stuck with me, and it made me see the Scriptures differently when I look at things. And that thought influenced this verse as well. Thus the last should be first and the first should be last. Suppose that is saying that all of these people in the field are you. And so these are different aspects of self. So that part of me that is immature, that part of me that is more earthy and more animalistic, that seems to be the part that drives me, that the part that influences me on a daily basis. Again, the first shall be last. In other words, I start to operate, or I start transitioning to the point where that soulful part of me becomes first, that I start living that way, that I start seeing things that way, I start addressing issues that way. My breathing changes, meaning my speech changes, and I put that immature part of me into submission until it can be brought up to speed, so to speak, or brought into balance and being enlightened. So if I look at it that way, and what I'm getting at as part of the supposition is, if you can see life that way, if you can see this spiritual thing that I'm talking about that way, that soulful part of you, and we've talked about we've talked about before that I am one with my ancestors. If that is true, then I am also one with those who have not come before me, that are coming in the future, let's say. So could it be that I'm also one with these in the present? So all of this stuff that we face every day, or even the fears that we talk about, all of that is a part of me and all of that, the things that I'm fearful of is a part of me. And as I learn, and yes, you hear something here. This is a lesson we've had over and over and over. And I think there's a reason for the repetitiveness of this, that we hear things and we understand in different ways. So if I see this as all being me, as though I am a universe, and all of this is happening inside of me, then the arrangement, the confusion can be brought into submission by me, by my soulful side. So the last shall be first. In other words, Ron, that which is immature, that part that is hasn't recognized the soulful part, that part of you that is walking in confusion. You have not only a right, but you have an obligation to submit that. You bring that into submission. You have an obligation to allow your soulful part of you to arise to the top. If you are serious about this journey, and it kind of goes into what Mary was saying, if you're serious about this journey, that part of you, that soulful part, will transition to the top and start not only changing you, but that is truly, it's not just something we're saying, it is truly how we change the world. So I recognize that I am a universe, and I recognize that this field that these workers are in me, and the workers are part of my personality. And I bring them into submission by my desires to be enlightenment, my desires to not be fearful, my desire to be soulful and become what Elohim says that I am. And ask me questions if that is not clear, please.
Ron.
Yes, sir. I hope that was clear. I hope that made sense.
Am I hearing this? That we are not in the universe is in us.
It's in us.
And that's one of the most difficult things for us to wrap our mind around because of the vastness of the universe. So how can all of that be in me? Because every trait in the universe is in you. That's what makes you the universe.
And it looks so vast, it looks so dark because you're not familiar with yourself. Not to that degree. We are not familiar with our souls. And it looks overwhelming. It looks like something we can't see all of it. We'll never understand. But it's you. No one will understand it if not you.
So I think that is not too much of a leap to embrace being the attributes of the universe. If you can wrap your mind around not being the Elohim that you are, but being Elohim, period. I don't think it's too big a leap from when you can wrap your mind around being Elohim to embrace that you are the universe. Everything in that universe is you. And let me scientifically speaking, every mineral in your body, every element in your body is in the universe. And that in itself speaks to the universe being in you. But what we, I think, don't get, even if we embrace or believe that the universe is in us, that means that you must become aware that you have within you every bit of the wisdom, the power, the understanding that's in the universe. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, sir. That's it in a nutshell. Every bit of it is you. Every bit of it. And the hard part is, as Pastor said, is to wrap your mind around this, is to view this as none of this is external. None of this is outside of you. And it doesn't mean that I can just think a thought and everybody snaps in line. It's just the journey is Ron recognizing Ron. And being soulful, meaning I truthfully and willfully desire to be soulful, desire the Elohim that I am to rise up and rule me. So we have said this on numerous occasions, but the truth is this journey has to say, I have no free will. I am Elohim. And that is, I am Elohim is my desire, period.
I am Elohim. It's easy to say that and wrap your mind around it than the universe. I'm going to tell you why. Because our breath is spirit. And if you are indeed Elohim, and you are, then you are not all of the breath or all of the spirit that's in the world and in this body, but you're a part of it. You have access to it. You have the energy of it. So it's no different. When we are the universe, it's no different than we recognize that we're Elohim, because that's spiritual, that's your breath to remind you who you are. And if you stop breathing, then you get disconnected from this body, but not the spirit, not the breath, not the air, not the wind. All those words are the same. And if we can understand that the physical manifestation of the universe being in us, or the elements, the chemicals, the minerals, everything is in us. This is a physical manifestation of the universe. And just like the universe breathes, so do we. And being in rhythm with the universe has everything to do with breathing in rhythm with the universe. When you're fearful, you panic. Your breathing changes dramatically, and you can pass out from fear. When you're courageous, you take time to see where you are. You understand the meaning of slow is fast and fast is slow. That means that fast is slow means that you are particular about what you say, how you say it, and how you relate to other people. That's a military term that means that you methodically approach the target, and you do not rush, because rushing makes you slower, meaning that you miss what you're going for. Right now, we have methodically risen to the place where we are in our understanding. If we were rushing to it, then we are slowed down because fast is slow. When you get there, that's when you're fast because you have taken your time. How many times have you said, if you don't take your time, you're going to mess up? If you're not methodical, you're going to miss. When you find a weapon, if you're not methodical, if it's not muscle memory, you're going to miss. Does that make sense to you guys?
Does to me.
Yes, me.
Yes.
So, real. That's the reason why the Mayans can mark the stars and know what was in the universe because they was part of the universe.
Yes, and they were taught how to be a part of the universe by Africans. If you go to the east coast of South America, you will see in the ruins on the coast these huge stones facing the ocean, and they were built in honor of what the Mayans and the Incas called the gods of the sea, because from Africa they came and they taught. There's no escaping that. I mean, the remnants are there. That's why the Dogon could see. Yes. See, if you teach people and don't give them a sense of responsibility for each other, and don't give them the idea, or don't give them the necessary tools to physically defend themselves, then what happens is when a brutal group of people come in, they defeat you. What did the Mayans say? Go deep into the jungles because a ship with white faces on it is going to come to destroy us. And they did not move. Those who went deep into the jungle survived. Those who did not go deep into the jungles became the servants of those with white faces. Are you familiar with that? Any of you?
This is the first time I heard it.
Study the Mayans. A Mayan priest told them that before it happened.
This is Vermel. Sage, what you just expressed by the Mayans go deep into the jungle. How do we do that in today's living, in our day-to-day living, spiritually?
You don't have to go into the jungle. You're already in it. You're in a spiritual jungle that's being manifested with all the chaos around you. And if you're not careful, you become a part of that chaos.
So is that what it means? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So then is that what the reference is to go into your closet?
You are your closet. When we talk about going into yourself, we're talking about have a self-awareness of who you are and what your responsibilities are to mankind. If you're not careful, you become a part of the chaos and not even know it. So right now, the people who are in church are part of the chaos and they don't realize it. Betsy DeVos, or whatever her name is, that was Department of Education with Trump. She said the education department should not exist. That sounds like politics, right?
Right.
But it's not. How come she didn't say the Justice Department should exist? The Commerce Department should not exist. Why she did not say that? Or the Agriculture Department should not exist. The reason she didn't is because it's racist. Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass are responsible for health, education, and welfare, and they split the departments trying to get rid of all of them. That's why she want to get rid of it. That's why we Republicans and Democrats are paring down the Department of Education. You'll be a part of the chaos and not even know it if you're not careful. The way to figure out whether you are part of the chaos without knowing it is become cognizant of how you relate to people. If you're mean, if you're hateful, and as I said earlier, selfish, if you always got something smart or short to say, you're part of the chaos. If you do not want to do anything for anyone, you are the chaos. You cannot be your brother's keeper and beat the hell out your brother with your words or with your actions every time you see him. You're not keeping them. You're making an attempt to destroy them. Does that make sense for now?
I hear what you're saying, and I'm just speaking for me. I hear what you're saying, but I almost feel like I've got something interfering with that. Because when you say the example you just gave, if you're mean, harsh, that kind of thing, is the answer then just to move away from them, not speak to them, leave the space? Am I making clear what I'm asking?
You can't run yourself. So no matter where you go, you're going to have the same thing happen. Over and over. As we were talking with Mary earlier, it's going to continue to happen until you deal with it. Whatever it is that's in the way, you're going to continue to have it until you deal with it. Maybe someone else can help me explain it clearer than I have.
No, that makes sense to me. And so my next question in that would be, having these thoughts myself, is, so this is where it comes in. If a person strikes you 77 times as you attempt to resolve or move forward or through the issue, then if that's what it takes, that's what it takes.
Let me show you. Let's back up to the 77 times, okay?
Okay.
That was, Jesus was speaking in terms of forgiveness. How often you forgive.
Okay.
How many times you should forgive.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a metaphor to you always forgive. So that's what that 77 is talking about in the scriptures.
Okay.
So now please repeat your question.
So then you said if you keep running away, as you said, let's say that's my issue to deal with, then how am I going to learn? I'm going to just keep doing that until I learn?
You don't have to keep. You can learn. You can learn by admitting to yourself what's happening. And you can do something about it. Change your attitude. And you're not going to change it overnight. However, if you are obstinate, then you catch that. and you say, I'm so sorry, that's not who I am. That's what you do. That's how you correct it. That's how you change your attitude. But see, we are so deeply ingrained into this chaotic society, until we think that it is a disgrace to say I'm sorry. It takes strength to say I'm sorry. It takes compassion to say I'm sorry. I've spoken to people and had to call them back and say, you know what, I'm sorry. That did not come out right. I do apologize to you.
So even if you do the I'm sincere, I'm sorry, right? And the person continues to do the same repetitive behavior.
That's their problem, not yours.
And I just need to stay in the direction I'm moving in, being sincerely apologetic. Not that I need to keep saying it 50 million times, but
right.
To stay in that attitude.
The attitude, yes. The thing about it is making sure that your attitude is right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on for a second. Go ahead, Ron. Would you pick up here for a moment, please? Because I just got a call from.
Okay. Emil, does that make sense? What he's saying to you?
It does make sense to me. In talking
I can add a little bit. Hello?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was going to follow up what Pastor Richard was saying.
Okay.
Mr. Mill,
Mm-hmm.
If you have done something or you feel as though in your heart you have done something that in a sense trespasses against that person or something, or was you treated them or saw them in a light below what they actually, of course, are. And I'm not talking about based upon what they did, but I mean in terms of anything that was belittling to them that you said or did, or in your heart. It starts in that latter one, in your heart, which is what you are correcting, in a sense, and setting the record straight. But that is happening, with yourself as well. So you can sincerely apologize to them, and in a sense, that is setting things straight in terms of what is your responsibility. In terms of someone who has trespassed against you and they continue to do so, it doesn't mean that if you forgive them that you have to keep dealing with them. What matters is that you have essentially wiped their credit clean as far as how they have wrong done you. It doesn't mean that you have to continue dealing with them in order for it to be proven that you've forgiven them in some situations, because people have to change on their own. That's a decision and an action that they have to make on their own part, and no one can do it for them. It may even be harmful for you to continue to be in their presence or continue to deal with them. But that is something that is totally separate from you. That does not determine whether or not you have forgiven them. You can even communicate with them, that, I love you, etc., if you want to and you think it's justified, because in some sense, and depending on the situation, the person doing this could hold themselves in danger longer. Hey, but I'm going to have to separate myself from you because whatever you're doing is harmful or hurting me, et cetera. But the idea of forgiving someone does not mean that you continue to deal with them. And you could also think that maybe their actions will continue if you allow them to maintain that position in order to do it again. Does that help any?
100%. Now I understand my shortcomings in understanding what that means. That really helped a whole lot.
Yeah, forgiving someone does not mean that you have to continue to deal with them. And forgiving someone doesn't mean that you automatically think just because you forgave them that they're going to continue with whatever their actions may have been. That is a lesson that still they have to learn and change on their own. We cannot make anyone change, just like no one can make us change. No one is our responsibility in terms of our actual change. We can simply provide the conditions to help their changing, but in actually making them change, or whether or not they change, that is not up to us.
Everybody has their own choice. Thank you.
Yeah, everyone has their own choice, and I would say that how should I put this? That may be something in a quote unquote sense that they're actually battling with, and whatever they are actually doing that is not, I would just say, reflective of the sacredness that they are, is a matter whose source is within inside of them.
Thank you.
So,
I got it.
It takes work. That's all of this. That's the thing. It is deliberate in a sense, because when we are acknowledging the sacredness of ourselves and walking in that sacredness, that means that there has to be a deliberate choice to make a change, and also an acknowledging within ourselves that we were not doing that, and that's not how we want to be. And some people are just, for whatever reasons, and every last one of us have been there about something. It may still be there, of course, now, but there are things that are not necessarily that we willingly acknowledge, that we're willingly or ready to face necessarily. Yeah, I would say that. Okay.
Thank you both.
Excellent.
More than welcome.
Thank you, Sheldon. Yeah. Anyone else? Where are we? I hope this whole discussion has made sense to us. And it is kind of I think we say a lot of the same things sometimes. We find different lessons to give us the same morals, if you will, and that speaks to me, because maybe that's where we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to be looking at. I don't think that's coincidental. So we're growing, we're evolving, we're transforming into to see who we truly are. And as we do so, we change the world. And as we are in the midst right now, I would say each one of us in various in our own places, we stir up the world. We stir things up that needs to be revealed, needs to be uncovered, and it also reveals things about us and gives us an opportunity to not only be enlightened, but to see who we truly are. So I embrace that. I think we are in a good place. And I appreciate you guys. So once again, the discussion, again, and this is something I love, the word neighbor. A lot of what we're seeing in the world today, a lot of things that happen is opportunities. It is the world or situations drawing close to you, drawing near to you, so that you may see who you are. And it is at the end of that, we will understand that not only are we love, we are an expression of love for the entire earth, the entire universe. And so when it says to love your neighbor, you are more, much more than you can ever know, as we will find out, as we will see with our own eye. So I hope all of this made sense. Questions and comments, and again, if you have any questions or comments about anything said, please feel free to ask. But if not, I don't know if I have anything else. I don't think I do. Questions or comments, anyone?
Ron, I just want to say that I grasp what you said about the first shall be last, and it resonated, and to me it makes sense. And the word evolving came up, and you said it, so it kind of just, we're evolving into who we are to be. I mean, who we are. We are already there. We just have to recognize it. And these are steps that we take to get to who we are. Because, when I first heard about, we can put it out there and we respond, I'm thinking that's a heavy load, but it's not like that. And I think we talked about that before, about you do your part and everybody else do theirs, and we'll make a wonderful world.
And you just remind me of something. The other thing I want to say about fear, Pastor and talked about water having memory, and we talked about that, and he and Sheldon did an excellent job of explaining that. We are not only, my mind went back to the nation on the water, talking about fear, but we are also afraid of our lives. As a people, Africans, we are afraid to step out of our boxes. We're afraid to step out of our comfort zone. We're afraid to get away from churchly thinking, or away from what, for lack of a better term, being Americans. We are so much more than that. And if we turn inwardly and do that search, and even ask a very simple question, universe or Elohim, show me who I am. We are conditioned. We have been conditioned, and we fear stepping away from that because we have become comfortable with it. So just think about that, because we're at a beautiful place right now, and I don't at least recall reading anything about anyone else being at this place in history as far as spiritually being able to make changes and to see things. And I think Mary was the one who answered the question, talking about mapping the universe. All of that is the beauty that we're talking about as far as being able to be balanced and see beyond education, see beyond what the physical eyes can see. You trust who you are. You see it and you trust it. So I think we're at a good place. Questions or comments, y'all? Again, I hope this made sense, and if not, we'll talk about it again until it does make sense. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Sheldon. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.